Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel, ToucheTashe, and I am Tashi. So here we're going to be covering episode 3 of My Killer Body with K. Michelle, so let's get into it. So with episode 3, it follows 2 women entitled Third Time's the Charm with Elena, 43, and a contest of cuts with Aisha, 29. So I'm going to start with Elena's story, and then I'm going to go into Aisha's story, or Aisha's story. I think it's Aisha. I'm gonna say Aisha for the video. So we have Elena. She's 43. I think she's in Florida. She had an upper body lift and a double bridge. I'm not even gonna pretend to pronounce the word, but she basically had work done to recorrect her surgery that she had prior. She had a dual dino switch because she was overweight, so she lost a lot of weight from that procedure, and then from there she got the upper body lift to where she was trying to recorrect the extra skin after losing all the weight. She lost about, I think, almost 200 pounds she lost. She was over 300 pounds. Basically, she grew up with body image issues. She said from the moment since she was 5, she remembered telling one of her cousins that she didn't want to eat the empanada because she was on a diet at the age of like 5. And she doesn't remember why she was having body image issues, but I feel like 5 is extremely young to like be conscious of your body. Like, you just don't grow consciousness of what you're supposed to look like and what you're comparing yourself as a 5-year-old. I'm pretty sure she had to see something or hear something in which will think for her to think that she needed to diet at 5, because we're typically, some kids are skinny and some kids are chubby, but typically you lose the little chubby weight. Like, all kids are not skinny. Some kids are like fuller as children. It's not far-fetched to be 5 years old and have little excess weight. You can tell the difference between like a little chubby, little cute little kid versus like an obese child. You can tell the difference. And the pictures that they showed of her as a little kid, she didn't look overweight. She just looked like a healthy, fluffy little kid, and there's nothing wrong with that. But over time, she was an overweight teen, and then she became a morbidly obese adult. If she was over 300 pounds, that's morbidly obese. So I understand about that. You wanting to get, some work done. So back in December 2020, that's when she received the upper body lift, which caused her damage to her body. They like really jacked her up. She at this point, she couldn't raise both of her arms because she had the extra skin in this area here. So like, typically when women gain weight in the lower belly area, they'll just get like a tummy tuck, where I guess they'll pull the skin up or the skin down to stitch it. But her, she was large, morbidly obese all the way around, so they had to like remove a lot of excess skin after she lost the 200 pounds. And one of her arms, they tightened skin. The scar tissue was too tight to where she could only raise her arm about here, and at that point you can see the pulling and you could see the thick scar, and it had like a weird little, they called it a dog ear, and you could see it from behind. It looks crazy. With this arm, she was able to raise like straight up. With the other arm, you could tell it was causing pain. It made me like queasy. I was like, sheesh. Like, so basically, Elena was vlogging her experience because she did this not that long ago. She did it in 2020. We're in 2022, so this was current. And she was vlogging her experience. Her skin went numb overnight, like around 6 p.m. And she felt a sharp pain in her arm. This is after the procedure of her getting rid of the excess skin. She went to the bathroom and went to go use and it was like blood gushing everywhere out of her wounds. She had like a 3-inch gap in her arms. She said it was blood all over the floor, all over the walls, the bed. So she ended up going to the emergency room. So in between her speaking about this, she's sitting with her mother and her daughter. So she has a 9-year-old daughter. She was there with her mother, and they were explaining how they felt in that moment of her going through this ordeal. Like, she thought she was gonna lose her life at this point. She was like freaking out because of that. And that's when she found out she had the 3-inch gap from where they did not properly seal her up or heal her. She said she was basically held together by like surgical glue and tape, which is beyond me. So they didn't even stitch her up properly so she can heal. So that would cause her to leak out and bleed everywhere. So I'm assuming that's the arm that she couldn't raise all the way up with all this thick scar tissue. And it looked crazy from the pictures. Like, it looked for sure uncomfortable, and like from the little bit of videos that she did. But she was another one that did not do her research on her doctors, and she was being cheap. That's what I wrote down. That's how I took it out of the story. No disrespect to anyone, but that's how I received it. She didn't want to spend the money. This is what she told K. Michelle when she met up with K. Michelle. K. Michelle comes to her home and she explains to her that she didn't want to spend the adequate amount of money to get the surgery done properly. She had an amount. She found the doctor for that particular amount that she was willing to spend, and she just ran with it. So basically, she gambled with her life and her health out of. It doesn't matter how much money you spend, but if you're gonna be cheap, if you're gonna go through things that's gonna alter you permanently, you shouldn't be cheap on that. Like, you could be cheap on maybe some hair, maybe you could be cheap on some makeup, some clothing, things that are not physically affecting you, like your body. Like, you only have one vessel, so to be cheap about it is wild to me, because I wouldn't be cheap about it. Like, if it's either you can afford it to do it properly or don't do it at all, because now when you go about it trying to be cost efficient, when you being cheap, basically things fall by the wayside when it comes to your health and being in medical. Like, that's not something you should be cheap about at all. Things that affect your body directly, like, it's beyond me how people be like, oh, that's a deal. Like, this whole episode, I'm not even gonna hold you, these women were trying to bargain with their bodies. They were bargaining with their bodies, and they didn't take themselves serious. That's how I took it at the end of the day. That's how I took it at the end of the episode. So, when we get into Aisha's story, she was bargaining with her health as well. She was bargaining with her body out of vanity. Well, this woman is a little bit different. Like, their stories are a little similar in the sense of how they went about things, but they both were bargaining with their health. And I was like, no, like, you only have one of these. You only have one of this. It's only one. So you don't bargain with it. You do your research. You spend top dollar if that's the route that you want to go. Even with the gym, like, don't be cheap about yourself. Don't be cheap about if you're going to cut yourself up, don't be cheap about it. If you're going to consume things, don't be cheap about it. Even if you're going to go about it the natural way, just work out and things like that, change your diet, but still don't be cheap about it. Anything you put into your body, you still should be mindful what you do inside and out. So you shouldn't be cheap about anything when it comes to your health. So that's my stance on that. So I did mention that she met up with K. Michelle. So K. Michelle came to her home. So she met Elena and Elena's daughter, Brooklyn. Now, Brooklyn is a 9-year-old. So she sits down and she asks Brooklyn, how does she feel about everything that her mom's going through? So this little girl goes, I need to do my research and blah, blah, blah. I immediately was like, oh, she's very articulate for a 9-year-old and very direct, like very self-assured. And I'm like, okay. Like, I was like, wow, like, she was so cute. I'm like, okay, sis. Like, you want to know what's going on with mama, huh? I so much appreciated. K. Michelle adored that. She adored that. She said she could be in her corner as well. So, like, basically, like I said, Elena was telling K. Michelle that she went the cheap route about it. She didn't want to spend the amount of money that what you normally would spend. She found the doctor to fix the mistakes. He basically made it worse. But she has a strong support system. At the end of the day, she has her, in the beginning, from what we see, we see her, she has her daughter and she has her mother, in which they're still like, they're supportive, but they're worried. They're like, are you sure? Because you were sure about this other doctor, and are you sure about this, that you want to fix it? And she's like, she's not happy. She's not comfortable. She wants to be able to teach her daughter how to play volleyball. She can't raise her arm. That's kind of weird. That's uncomfortable. Outside of that, like, doing regular tasks like bathing, working around the house. If you can't lift your arm all the way up, you have to be handicapped and someone has to help you do everything. Imagine like you're trying to go get something out the top of your cabinet and you're like this, and it's a whole thing. Maybe, I'm pretty sure sometimes she forgets that she can't lift her arm all the way up, and she goes to reach and she feels that uncomfortable pain, when it's something that's instinctual, like walking or like blinking or like raising, or if you're trying to raise your arm and you can't do it, subconsciously you just go up and you're like, oh, I can't, because my arm and the skin, like, it looked tight. You see the pulling in her armpit area. So it's understandable that she want to like take care of all of that. So Elena sits down with her mother and her daughter, and she speaks to them about Dr. Rubenstein and who she's going to go see. So now Dr. Rubenstein was in episode 2 as well. So I'm guessing he's going to be the go-to doctor in the Florida area. And I actually like him in these episodes, because he reassures you that everything is going to be fine, but he doesn't get your hopes up. Like he'll say things like, everything will be fine, it will work like this. He doesn't like get their hopes up like, oh, I could fix this 100%. Like it leaves the window open for them to be prepared for anything and reassuring them everything's gonna be all right. So she's gonna go see him. That's gonna be the person that's gonna be the doctor that's gonna be working on her. But I did catch about Elena's daughter, Brooklyn. I feel like she's too involved in her mother's health and her journey at a young age. I feel like she's too young to be fully in depth in everything that's going on with her. She's a little too opinionated in this arena. She's young, like she's a young girl that shouldn't be worrying about mommy's health and body issues. She just should be worried about being a child and that mommy's okay and things like that. I feel like her mother overshared too much for her, but from what we gathered on the show, I guess she's seen too much, because I guess they're all close and things like that. So like if you see your mom being dragged out and in the ambulance in the ER, you see your mom bleeding and everything, because that's what her daughter went through. Is traumatizing, I would imagine. But she has to be careful, because she did mention she hopes that everything that she's going through currently doesn't affect her daughter and her body, and she'll grow to have body image issues. I'm really curious of how she developed body issues in the first place, and what point did she ever work out prior to her having the surgery where she lost all the weight. Because this episode in particular touched to me, because they kind of had similar things that I had done, but my turnout was completely different versus their turnout, especially when it comes to Aisha's. I'm gonna get into it when it comes to her. I'm gonna do a separate video on what I did and how it worked for me, and how, because everybody's different. So like, some people it's easy for them to just go dedicate time to the gym and things like that. I'm be honest with you, I ain't that girl. I am not that girl. But I will explain to you why. I will for sure explain to you why. And then when you hear my background, you'll be like, oh, okay. So it's not like I'm just lazy. You get what I'm saying? There's laziness in there, but like not out of just plain, I just want to get snatched and go drink vodka all day and eat hot Cheetos. Like it's like everybody's journey is different. So this is why I was like really into this series, because it's a deal. It's a big deal. Us women struggle with their bodies. Women struggle with weight. Women struggle with body changes in general. So I was really interested in covering this story or this show. So back to the show. So Elena and her daughter, her mother, sit down and recap what happened in the moments where they knew that something was wrong. So upon after she got her surgery, her mom was helping her clean herself and clean her wounds. So she was using, I guess, a disinfectant cloth to clean off one of the areas, one of the arms. And her mom was like, oh my gosh, like, is something wrong with your arm? And she's like, no, that's normal, like, it's healing. She's like, no. So I guess all of the skin off of her arm came off her body. So that's how they knew something was wrong. And I would imagine it was traumatizing for the mother, it's traumatizing for the daughter. It's a traumatizing thing all around, because when you do things like that, when you do things like surgery, have children, anything that affects one person in the family affects everyone. And they discuss that throughout. It's a consistent theme throughout the whole episode. So within the sit down with Elena and her mother, she lets her know for the recorrection of her arms, that's a 4-hour procedure, and the doctor's not sure that he'll be able to recorrect the hanger, that's what she called it, like a hanger in her upper body, and do her arms at the same time, because that's a long time for someone to be under. Like, that's like almost like 3/4 of the day. Don't get me lying, I'm not a mathematician, but yeah, that's 5 hours, 4+ hours, that's a long time. So she's not sure, but her main focus is to get the full mobility in her arm, although she wants to get rid of the hanging tail and like smooth herself out and enjoy the actual hard work she did in losing all the weight and maintaining the weight loss. You want the excess skin gone, and that's understandable. Nobody wants to have that extra reminder of like, you know, I used to weigh over 300 pounds. So in the next scene, we see Elena getting ready for surgery. She talks about how she remembers how she felt like a slab of meat on a conveyor belt in her first experience. And she remembers hearing women screaming and crying in the office. In the office when she was awaiting to get her surgery done, and she said the only thing was blocking them was a sheet. And that would have freaked me out. That would have freaked me out. Definitely, I would have been afraid. But within this experience with Dr. Rubenstein, she felt like a human being. She felt more comfortable. She felt fully secure in the situation. So we see her going into the office as she's speaking, and she's with a man. I'm guessing it's her boyfriend, because you just see her with someone, and he helps her get undressed and put her surgical gown on. And I'm like, okay, who is this man? Like, we went throughout her story not knowing about a man. It was just her mother and her daughter. So I was like, okay, I guess I didn't even think. So I just was like, maybe that's her boyfriend and she didn't want him to be a part of it or whatever, or he had things to do, you know, who knows. So I'm guessing in that. So once again, we get to see this procedure. We get to see Elena's surgery get done. So he's gonna do scar revision on both of her arms and remove that tight piece of skin so she can be able to raise her arm. That's the goal. And revise the scar tissue. So that's what he plans on doing. So we get to see a bit of it. I had to turn my head. I'm not really into watching the cutting aspect of it. I can see like the still shots of pictures of scars and blood and things like that, but like the visible, watching the cuts and things like that, the skin split open, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Like, I don't want to see that. So I was turning my head, like peeking and squinting so I didn't miss anything. So I was like watching it like this. No, I couldn't do it. Now we jump into 11 days post-op. 11 days post-op, we see Elena removing her bandages from her underneath her arms, because she had the revision of the scars underneath her arms and to remove the excess skin. it was leaking blood out of her bandages. So the man that took her to the hospital, we find out within this scene that was her husband. So it was like, okay, so this whole time you had a husband, you introduced your daughter, you introduced, yeah, sit down. She introduced her mom and she introduced her daughter. She didn't introduce her husband. It was weird. And it's like, okay, like maybe he didn't want to be on camera. Maybe he couldn't be on camera. So I guess so. Within that, she goes back to the doctor to see what is the issue with her bleeding out her arm. And we see like, cause she's still vlogging this process, so from it's like a little leakage and you see like it dripping out blood out of one of her arms. You still see that she has bruising and scarring because she's 11 days out of surgery. So that's not long. I don't know what the recovery time was on it. I don't remember them mentioning how long it would take for her to recover from that procedure. But she goes to Dr. Rubenstein and he explains to her that it's normal when you have a raise in blood pressure. He said, what if you're happy or excited or angry? The blood goes into areas in which it's not normally going, so that's why it's gushing out. But it's just normal for her, so it's nothing for her to worry about now. So Elena is 16 days post-op and she can lift both of her arms completely over her head, so that worked out perfectly for her. You know, I didn't mention earlier, she was actually very pretty in the face. She was very cute. She had a really edgy haircut with like shades of purple and blue. That was really nice. So I'm guessing purple and blue, like those shades are her favorite colors, because she had like similar lipstick, like shades of pink with like undertones of blue and things like that. But she was visually a nice looking woman in the face, so you know, so she was able to lift her arms up completely without that tugging and that uncomfortableness. So good for her. So it worked out in her favor 100%. A month after the surgery, she video chats with K. Michelle. So K. Michelle, she shows K. Michelle that she can lift over her arms, and K. Michelle's excited about that. She's happy for her. Elena's happy with her results. So now she can play volleyball with her daughter, and she can wear tank tops and blouses without sleeves, because you know what's funny? Elena had a large bust, right? So what the crazy part about it, I'm pretty sure she wasn't into dieting and eating and playing sports beforehand, because the way her arms were very, very small, and she had a large bust. Like she looked like she was like double D's, or what they call them, Z's and Q's and M's. I don't know, child. But that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, she's happy how everything turned out. So that's basically the end of her story. So the next story is, I believe her name is Aisha. She's 30. Oh no, pardon me. She's 29. She's 29, and she got a free tummy tuck and BBL, if I'm not mistaken, a free surgery giveaway in the DR. And I was like, free surgery? And I was looking, when I was watching her story, I'm like, wait, I think I seen something like that on Instagram, where they were like giving away free Brazilian butt lifts and tummy tucks and like mommy makeovers or something like that. But in my mind at the time, I thought, I'm like, that sounds sketchy. Like that's you just don't give away expensive medical supplies or like anesthesia and things like that. So like it's not like it's an elective surgery. It's not like it's something that's covered by insurance and things like that. If that makes any sense, if I'm making any sense, it's not like it's covered. Don't get me to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. I'm not even gonna hold you, but it just sounds sketchy to me. It sounds real sketchy, and especially if it's not in the States. Because mind you, she went to the Dominican Republic. She went to DR to go get this work done. So I was wondering if they flew her out, if she got flued out, or she had to book her own flight and hotel. She didn't go into details about that. She just mentioned the surgery. So the reason why this story sounds familiar to me is because she had this done 5 months ago. So I'm like, okay, 5 months ago. So I'm pretty sure that the show was filmed within 2021 to now. So I'm like, yeah. So she recently had this done. So 2 years ago, oh, mind you, she's a mother of 3. So that's what we know of her right now. So she's 29, a mother of 3, and she had her first child at 17. So typically, what I noticed, like from some public stories, like Sky from Black Ink and other mothers, like when they have children young, typically their bodies, your body's not fully developed at the age of 17. Typically, as we get older, I guess like womanly curves and things like that fills out. So you're having kids young, your body is not like fully developed to do all that. So I'm assuming so she wasn't satisfied with her shape. And then after that, she had 2 more children. And typically when women have a bunch of kids and things like that, depending on where you're from, some people don't get back to themselves. So they're focused on their children, so they gain weight and things like that. And then poor diet, and it contributes to your weight. So she had gastric 2 years she had gastric bypass. So I related to her because I had the gastric sleeve, but I didn't have the bypass. Like, they don't really recommend bypass at this point, but I do plan on doing a video on my journey as far as like with loss. I'm more than welcome to share, but she had gastric bypass 2 years ago. But after her surgery, her tummy tuck and things like that, 5 days after that, she had surgical complications. She had internal bleeding, and her belly button fell off. It reminds me of I'm not sure what, pretty sure it's episode 1, but that's what it reminds me of. Like these girls that's getting these tummy tucks and things like that, their belly buttons are falling off, and that's scary. That's super scary. Like, and mind you, she's not in the States when she caught her infection. She's in the Dominican Republic, so she's by herself. Her family wasn't there. She has an infection. Belly button fell off. Now what? Now what? It's scary. It's super scary. So soon we learn that she gets flown back to the States to handle the issue at hand after having the procedure in the DR. So going on to the next thing. So we learn 5 days after her surgery, she had an abdominal abscess where in her drainage tubes it was secreting blood. So when you have surgery and certain procedures done, you'll have to get rid of the excess fluid. So they had tubes in her to drain the fluids, but for her, in her tubes there was blood, which is not supposed to be. So the fact that she had to go back to the States to get help done is beyond me. But why would you go to a country where like you're not for certain? It goes back to what I mentioned about Elena not wanting to spend the money on the surgery. She had a free procedure, and you going across free gambling with your life. But in her defense, her mom, from what she said, her mom had surgery from the same location. That's what she said. So she felt comfortable in going to get this work done, but she ended up having an infection and coming back to the States, trying to heal her wounds, and she had to take antibiotics 3 times a day for 3 weeks, I believe. And her belly button and her skin fell off. Like, that's not fun. So it's like you try to correct the excess skin that she thought she had after her gastric bypass. And I'm gonna say this, a lot of women do not have like proportionate big like shapes, if that makes sense. Like some women are naturally not bottom heavy. Some women, like, they have say like some of us are shaped like squares, upside down triangles like this, like right side up triangles, upside down triangles, square shape, more curves, So for her, it looked like she was more top heavy in my opinion, but I guess from the little node, the extra little pudge from having children and things like that. For her, I feel like she needed to like really work out. From the pictures that I saw, I was like, she doesn't look bad, you know? So she got the tummy tuck and everything else to not work out. And that's the thing, like, these girls think they can just go get work done and think that's it. Whether if you're having cosmetic procedure, I'm pretty sure I said this in episode 2 and 1. I'm pretty sure I said it in episode 1 and 2. Anytime you get any procedure done, whether if it's cosmetic or medical, when it comes to your body, you still have to do the work after. You still have to do the work after. Just because you go take the fat out your arms, take the fat out your back, take the fat out your neck, take the fat out your thighs, and put it in your ass, does not mean that your ass is going to still look appealing. It's going to be bigger, but you still have to work that muscle. It's still fat. It's not going to be shapely. You get what I'm saying? Because when you don't work out the fat muscles, that's what creates cellulite and the bumps in, because you're not working that muscle, if that makes any sense. So there's no quick fix. Even when you get weight loss surgery for your health, even when you do that, you still have to work your body. And I will explain that because I had weight loss surgery, so you still have to work. It's not like, oh, I had the surgery and it's done and I'm just going to go eat and X, Y, and Z. No, it does not work like that. It's still even if you don't have any, whether if you go under the knife or not, it's still work. If you do it, lose all the weight naturally, with the long gain is going to the gym, but for everyone it's not realistic. It's not realistic at all. But it's doable, but it's still time consuming, it's still work. Although weight loss surgery and cosmetic surgery is quicker, it's still a lot of work, so it's still a long gain. It's still things you have to do after the fact. Even if you don't go to the gym, it's women that still have to go get more, I guess, even when you do it the illegal way, you still have to go and get more injections when shit settles and do all that extra stuff. Or even when you go get a fat transfers, girls vlogging to this day about going to get butt massages and the less invasive processes now where they shrink the fat and things like that at this point. So there's no, at the end of the day, you think you found a shortcut, there's really no shortcut. It's still from day one to infinity and beyond. So in the next scene, we see Aisha throughout her home talking about how her body hurts sitting up, assuming from the lipo that she got in her back. And within this scene, we find out that she's married. She's been married for 2 years. Her husband is from Jamaica. Mind you, she has 3 children from previous relationship or ships, and he's not the biological father of the children, from what I gathered. From the way she was describing, I feel like they could be on another show, 90 Day Fiance. She said they met online and they've been inseparable ever since. And I'm assuming he flew over from Jamaica and they got married. So most of the time they spent together. He's been nursing her back to health after her surgery. So that's what I'm assuming. I could be off. I could be very off. So I'm assuming she had gastric a little before after she met him, because she said she got gastric 2 years ago and her husband was together 2 years ago. So she had a lot going on at once. He's not too gung-ho about this whole surgery thing. Like, he's like, he loves her the way she is, and he's not comfortable with her getting the work done. He finds her fine, but you know, like I mentioned before, women can have a whole partner and still like to see what you like to see despite what other people see. And it makes me think about another thing, like, are we vanity driven as women? Like we vanity driven? Because from what I'm seeing, like, a lot of women are willing to die about vanity, about the external factors of ourselves. And I feel like it's a whole nother video in itself. I can expound upon that, because I've been thinking about that around for a while now. Like, am I vanity driven? I enjoy a tad bit of my vanity in a sense, because I get to express myself within it, but I'm not willing to die about it. It's not that serious to me, but it's not about me. So further speaking with Aisha, we find out that the fact that she wants to have another procedure, and also because the previous procedure is leaving her with complications, it has caused, tension and issues within her marriage. She feels bad because she hasn't been intimate with her husband. He's afraid to touch her because she's very sensitive to the touch. She feels really bad about that. She feels a little alone. She's not really wanting to share. And I feel like there's a bit of, I wouldn't say cultural differences in a sense, because he's from Jamaica and she's from America, obviously. And typically with certain men, they like Caribbean men, they like curvy, like them big and things like that. But like American culture currently, because she said she got this 5 months ago, is the hourglass figure, the bodacious behind. Because from what I was seeing the pictures from prior to her free surgery, I was like, she didn't look bad to me, but people felt like that about myself. Like, oh, you look good. It's like, no, I know my body. I know the difference between me being at a healthy weight and me being obese. I know the difference. So I appreciate it, but we're gonna get this together. So I understand her 100%. But I feel like when she got her gastric bypass, she didn't take full advantage of it. I'm pretty sure she did not follow the doctor's orders, because she said she was still feeling fat, meaning that she thought she was just gonna lose all this weight and all is well. No. If depending on your body type, which I will try to explain in another video, you have to be mindful of where the furthest stretch in certain parts of your body. Because like for some people, they have larger behinds. Some people have smaller behinds. Some people have a larger bust, a smaller bust, or large. They gain weight in the arms, and the face is different for each person. So you have to be mindful of your body type, and you'll be able to go figure out whether, if you have these weight loss surgeries, like, okay, I have to be mindful of this area and this area. These will be my problem areas when I lose the weight. So you would just have to really know your body. The next scene, we see Aisha sit down with K. Michelle, and she explains to her how she won a free giveaway on IG for a surgical office that she found out her mom had a procedure. She didn't really go too in depth about what her mom had and how long ago, if it was the same doctor. She didn't really expound upon that. But if you're being referred by your mother, you don't know the particular doctor did the surgery, that's the surgery, that's weird. Because the surgical office that I went to, I was referred to by someone, and I knew clearly who the doctors were in the doctor's office. I went into the research afterward, and I knew that their credentials and the awards that they have won. It's like, how you not know the doctor and things like that? Speaking, like, I feel like it was like a couple of missing details in my opinion. So she made a video and she found out that she won that way. So the issue was within her procedure, they hit a blood, she mentions to K. Michelle, they hit a blood vessel within her during the procedure, and she got an infection in the DR. She had to come back to the States to get treated. So the doctors here expressed to her, means that she went out of the country to go get this work done. Other medical offices out of the country, their standards are different. So I'm assuming that the US has the highest standards when it comes to medical practice, and I'm guessing DR is not up there, because there's been a lot of issues with women going to the DR, getting their work done and not making it back home, or having severe complications, even down to their alcohol. They've been having a little rough reputation. Although I hear that it's very beautiful there, I would still love to go to visit there, not to get work done, just to go visit. But even out of issues of Americans going to the DR, they've been having issues like onto their alcohol that is not real drinking alcohol, that people are getting sick. They had that in the States. They had one close TGIF, literally like 10 minutes from me. So yeah, it's a for sure do your research type of moment. But who was to know that you would get a bacterial infection? Like, that can happen with a reputable doctor depending on your body and just that chance of a day. But typically it's not supposed to happen, so that was really unfortunate for her. So they go on to talk about wound bags and how that's how they were draining the fluids out of their body, because it was too much moisture, because after the surgery you have to drain fluids. So the wound bag will help get the fluids out and keep the area dry so it's able to heal, because if the wound is not dry, it won't heal properly. It's too much moisture, and usually moisture leads to bacteria in any incident. So K. Michelle says to her, like, yeah, I had the same thing happened to her with her silicone injections. She had 4 wound bags, 4 in her backside, even to the point where she would be at a show, and she would be draining in the middle of the show. And I'm like, that's crazy. She said for 2 months she had 4 wound bags draining out of her. So they bonded over that, and I think this is a really good show for K. Michelle. It's unfortunate that she had, like I mentioned before, it's unfortunate that she had to go through something traumatic to find a purpose, a different purpose, because mind you, she's very talented individual outside of music. She is a relatable in a sense. She's very relatable and make people feel comfortable. Like, she's a personality in herself. So I'm thoroughly enjoying the series. The next scene we see Aisha. I know I said a name early in the video, but Aisha, I'm gonna say Aisha at this point because it's easy for me to remember. She sits with the doctor, and his main focus on what she's trying to achieve is to make sure she heals healthy and help her find her belly button. So she, especially because she had the infection, and she's still, I would imagine she still is not fully healed, being that it was 5 months ago and she's not healing properly because she's infected. She was on it for like 3 weeks, which is like typically a month or so, you know. So he ensures her that he can fix her belly button, and is focused on making sure that she does not become infected. So she sits and talks to her husband about what she's had talked about the doctor with. Mind you, the husband is not really interested in her going back under the knife because he doesn't want her to see her hurting anymore and with the pain, because she is like Elena, she needs help. Like, Elena feels that tightness in her arm, she feels the tightness in her belly, you know. So she's not 100%. She's incapable of doing normal tasks because of the tightening and the excess scar tissue in her stomach area. So she's experiencing a lot of uncomfortability. So now she's trying to assure him, like, okay, this is not for vanity reasons. This is because now I'm affected health-wise. So she's trying to reassure him that everything will be okay. She researched his doctor. I'm not going to pretend how to say his name. But he basically ensures her that they're going to get everything all together. So for her, the doctor removes the excess skin. He removes the excess skin and help locates her belly button and recenters it. After we see a bit of that, not too much. Like, we didn't see as much as Dr. Rubenstein working on Elena. So 2 weeks post-op, her healing went well. She wasn't just sure about the excess scar tissue. For her, I guess it was giving her deja vu because it was looking similar to when she got the work done in DR. He assured her that everything is fine. It's just going to take a lot longer for you to heal because you were severely infected. Mind you, she got in contact with bacteria that are not normal in the States. Because you know how, like, when you go to other countries and things like that, they have different types of bugs and bacteria and I guess diseases and things that are not located in other parts of the world because the animals and the climate and advancement of technology and medicine are different. So that's as far as I'm going to get into it. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm on the money with a little bit of that. But he was able to get her together and fix everything. So 2 months post-op, she FaceTimes, gets on a video call with K. Michelle, and she had issues in her procedure. Her stitches got infected, so her body rejected the stitches. And that's what we have to realize about as our bodies are so sensitive, like very fragile. We take them for granted, like even down to like my nose piercing. I didn't have the right piercing in my nose because a lot of us can't take a lot of different minerals and metals and things in our body, so that's why you have surgical steel. A lot of people can't put just a regular plastic or different types of materials, nickel and things like that. A lot of people are allergic to nickel. Can't put a lot of different types of elements on our bodies and it flare up, even down to essential oils, things that grow from the ground, things that are natural to this earth, can irritate us. We're not invincible. Our bodies are very, very fragile. Although they're strong, they are fragile. So, yeah. Outside of that, I done lost my train of thought. But yeah, she got an infection her body rejected the stitches, but for the most part, she is fine. Although she was fine. Everything well. But this is what got me at the end, because this is the end of the episode. So her husband comes into the camera. So mind you, she's FaceTiming K. Michelle. Her husband comes behind her. Her husband was skinning and grinning too hard at K. Michelle, like, oh, I watch your lives on Instagram. And she's like, oh, don't watch my lives. Like, sir, you fangirling out too hard for K. Michelle in front of your wife. Mind you, earlier in the episode, sis couldn't even pick up a basket to the laundry basket. Mind you, he's leaning over her, behind her, like, this K. Michelle. And she's leaning over like, I'm like, sir, back and calm down, relax. You too excited for this other woman. I was like, I had to pause it. I was like, I know he did not. I was over it. I was like, he needs to sit down, because it could have been me. I'd have been like, all right, enough, relax. You're too excited, sir. You're too excited for K. Michelle. Like, relax yourself, simmer down. But yeah, that was the episode. I will follow up for episode 4. I didn't want to look too much at the preview. It doesn't matter. We'll see in the next episode when I review. So be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.